It started with an aircraft carrying more than a coffin across continents. On board were grief, unanswered questions, and the uneasy conscience of a nation still struggling to understand a life and a death shaped by power, controversy, and symbolism. Shortly after sunrise on Friday, the remains of former South African ambassador to France and senior African National Congress (ANC) figure Nathan arrived at OR Tambo International Airport, draped in the national flag. Faces gathered on the tarmac reflected the heaviness of the moment. What should have been a quiet return home instead became the final chapter of a life that had long been politicized and hotly debated, ending in tragedy far from South African soil. Once a powerful presence within government and the ruling party, he fell from the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Regency Paris Retur while serving as South Africa's ambassador. He was 58. French authorities continued to examine the exact circumstances of his death. Although no official evidence of foul play has been announced, the timing, the limited details, and the unanswered questions have fueled ongoing public speculation. Before his body was returned home, his family gathered in the very hotel room where he died to perform a traditional ritual meant to honor him and guide his spirit back. Speaking with visible emotion, his son Mulaima explained that their cultural heritage is sacred and that allowing their father to rest without completing these rites was unimaginable. Another close relative, Kohi, described how standing before the same window their father had seen in his final moments was deeply painful, yet necessary, a confrontation not only with private grief but with questions they felt the nation also shared. Back in South Africa, preparations were underway for an official farewell. President Cyril Ramaphosa declared a Category 2 state funeral. Ceremonies were scheduled in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by a memorial service in Pretoria before burial. Former colleagues from his time as Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture gathered to reflect on a tenure that placed him at the center of national identity, pride, and intense scrutiny. The ANC prepared formal tributes through party representatives. Yet even as these events aimed to promote unity, they revealed enduring divisions within South African society. At a memorial in Pinetown, former Police Minister Becky Cele delivered emotional remarks, sharply criticizing what he saw as public indifference. Death is death, he insisted, accusing critics of lacking compassion. His words resonated across a country split between sympathy and skepticism. Reactions were also shaped by memories of his brother, Ajoda Domo, who died previously in Zanzibar. Some viewed the family as loyal servants of the state, others associated their name with a political era in which allegiance often overshadowed accountability and corruption weakened public institutions. Throughout the unfolding events, the De family appealed for privacy and dignity, urging that politics be set aside so they could mourn a father, husband, and son. But in the public sphere, his life and death proved inseparable from broader political narratives. For some observers, his passing symbolized the fading of an ANC leadership circle shaped during the Zuma years. Known as a steadfast defender of the party line during that period, he maintained firm loyalty even as corruption allegations damaged the ANC's credibility. His tenure as Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture was not without controversy. The proposed R22 million national flag project, eventually abandoned after public backlash, reinforced his image as a divisive figure. Yet as the days passed and official ceremonies unfolded, the sharp tone of political debate gradually softened, revealing a more human story, one of a grieving family, a fractured community, and a death that offered little closure. French investigators reconstructed his final hours, reportedly reviewing surveillance footage that showed him returning alone to his hotel room. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle, and no conclusive evidence of third-party involvement. Still, questions persisted about his state of mind, the pressures he may have faced, and the burdens he carried in his final hours. Officials urged restraint, cautioning that speculation would neither uncover truth nor bring healing. But in South Africa, public opinion rarely pauses. Newsrooms buzzed, WhatsApp groups overflowed, and social media became a breeding ground for competing theories. Some saw a tragic personal collapse, others suspected darker forces, arguing that the circumstances felt too sudden and too unclear to ignore. Amid this atmosphere of suspicion and sorrow, the scene at Tambo International Airport unfolded with quiet dignity. Police stood at attention. Diplomats lined the runway. Family members wept openly as the coffin was lowered from the aircraft. It was a striking image, a man who once exercised considerable influence returning home under the escort of the very institutions he had helped shape. In life, he stood at the crossroads of art, politics, and authority. In death, he became a symbol where memory intersected with accountability. As preparations continued in KwaZulu-Natal, flags raised, speeches delivered, rituals observed, it became evident that while his body would soon be laid to rest, the questions surrounding his life and death would persist. South Africa has buried many leaders. Yet the doubts that follow them are seldom buried alongside them. As the funeral convoy traveled through rolling hills, it seemed the nation itself was watching, mourning, reflecting, and questioning whether the fall of one man marked the decline of a generation shaped by promise, loyalty, and compromise. His sudden death came to represent more than personal tragedy. It echoed a broader reckoning with the cost of political loyalty in a system that often demanded everything from those within it. His journey could not be separated from the political forces that propelled him to prominence and controversy. While his family grieved in private, the public revisited a career defined by both achievement and dispute. The rituals in Paris, the ceremonies at home, and the relentless national debate all underscored how deeply his story touched unresolved questions about leadership and accountability. Even as official tributes honored his service, they could not silence inquiries about political pressure, personal struggle, and the delicate line between public responsibility and human vulnerability. In many respects, his death forced South Africa to confront the fragility of leadership itself. The public figure who navigated corridors of power was, in the end, reduced to a coffin draped in the national flag. Authority and office offered no protection against mortality, or against the questions that endure after it. In KwaZulu-Natal, the final rites promised ceremonial closure, though not necessarily clarity. Condolences were offered. Flags flew at half-mast. Yet beneath the formal mourning lingered uncertainty about what was known, what remained hidden, and what might never be fully understood. The journey from a Paris hotel room to a South African grave traced more than the end of a life. It followed a path through ambition, service, controversy, and contradiction, elements that the nation recognized as part of its own story. Ultimately, Nathan's legacy defied simple labels. It was woven from success and failure, loyalty and scandal, public recognition and private struggle. The honors bestowed upon